Pastor French, I see that you've logged on. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for the invitation.
Wonderful.
We appreciate you stepping in for Mr. Dix.
Yes, it
He owes you lunch a couple of times over, I think.
I think that I'm probably still indebted to him.
And when we get to the Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Alawas, I will call on you.
Be honored to do it.
Hey, I have 7 o'clock. Miss Elvia, do we have everyone here?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Glendora City Council on March 8th, 2022. Tonight's public meeting will be conducted utilizing Zoom video communications. This allows the city to conduct essential business and comply with Public Health Administration recommendations to protect the public and city employees while practicing social distancing and limiting exposure by not having in-person meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate in our meeting this evening, public comments can be submitted as live comments during the meeting by using the raise hand icon on Zoom. And also they can be submitted via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. With that, Madam Deputy City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each council member respond with present when their name is called. Councilmember Alawas.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Present.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer
Present.
and Mayor Davis.
Present.
All council members are present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. This evening, we have no closed session items, so that will lead us into our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, we are very happy to have with us the lead pastor at Cornerstone Bible Church, Pastor Bruce French. He will be leading our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Alawas. Pastor French.
Thank you for this invitation. Would you please bow with me as we pray? Father, we thank you for the city of Glendora, for the members of the city council who preside over its citizens. We ask that you would anoint the mayor and the council with wisdom, insight, humility, and direction as they seek to lead and care for the variety of needs and concerns. I thank you for protecting our city through this unusual time, coming up on 2 years of COVID. And I'm grateful for the wisdom and insight and the care that our council members have led our city. We ask that you grant a special blessing to our firefighters and our first responders who faithfully risk their lives to protect the lives of others in this precarious time. We add an additional request to watch over the men and women who serve in the different capacities of police, fire, and healthcare. Protect them in their services and provide for their various needs and their care for the citizens of our fair city. Additionally, we want to thank you for the men and women who are serving in the armed forces throughout the world in an endeavor to promote peace. We especially ask that you would intervene in the conflict in Europe, that you protect lives and you would bring this to an end. We are grateful for the freedoms we exercise because of the great sacrifices of those that serve in the armed forces. Please watch over their families' needs in their absence, and we ask that you would return them safely. Likewise, we offer our intercession for the many veterans who have served faithfully, and we request that both citizens and agencies would express their gratitude in tangible ways. Now, please guide in this meeting. We pray for understanding, attentiveness, mutual respect, and cooperation. Last, would you remind us daily to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with you, O Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So if everyone's ready for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you can, please stand. you place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the
the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty,
and justice
justice
for
for all.
Thank you, Pastor French, and thank you, Mr. Alawas. That takes us to student reports. This evening, we have none. Next is reordering of or additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to request that we remove item 2 from the agenda this evening.
I'll second that.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any opposition to that? Okay, hearing none, then it sounds like a 4-1 that it will be removed. So with that, that takes us in. There any other reordering of or additions to the agenda? All right, that takes us to public comment. At this time, I will open the public comment time and invite members of the public to address the city council. You could do so by using the raise hand icon. You will have 3 minutes to speak on anything on or off of the agenda. So if you wish to speak, we invite you to use that raise hand icon, and you can also submit comments via public comments at cityofglendora.org. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to speak at this time?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also announce that one correspondence email was received and incorporated into the agenda packet distributed to council and made available to the public prior to the meeting tonight. In addition, we have had 2 people use the raise hand icon that wish to speak. We would like to call on John Harold at this time. John, are you unmuted so that you can participate?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to comment on the issue of concealed gun permits here in Glendora. This council has heard previously that we don't need concealed gun permits, that they would make the city less safe. Now, I'm not speaking as a psychologist, psychiatrist, or a social worker. I'm speaking as a longtime member of law enforcement. I've spent 37 years in law enforcement as a deputy district attorney, first in West Covina, Pomona, downtown Los Angeles, and I finished my career in El Monte right next door. And based upon my training and experience and talks with all my friends in law enforcement, I've decided, as many others, that we need CCWs or concealed gun permits. We particularly need concealed gun permits at this time because this council and this mayor has made the city and the county less safe because of their failure to even entertain a motion of no confidence in the district attorney Gaston. At the very time they refused to even come up with that motion, it's getting more unsafe for us. And by their not having concealed gun permits in Glendora, they are putting ourselves and our families and our friends in greater risk because this council knows that DA Gaston refuses to prosecute juniors for adult crimes. If a junior were to murder a citizen of Glendora, they would be out by the time they're 25 because he will not prosecute them as adults. This council also knows, because I've told them, that Gaston refuses to participate in helping to protect our citizens. And how he does that is he has released thousands and thousands of people from the prisons by supporting the governor and supporting the policies of the parole board, so that literally every single person that I helped put in 37 years, the district attorney's office and the governor are doing everything to let them out. Unfortunately, all at one time. This council knows that the DA refuses to file cases of theft under $950, assault cases, simple trespass cases, and drugs, which results in all the homeless people we see walking around town all the time, putting every one of us at risk. Now, they also know that he fails to prosecute criminals who use the guns, but yet They want to strip up of our ability to defend ourselves. And I know Glendora PD does a great job. Everyone knows they do that. But unfortunately, it's up to the DA to then prosecute the people. And the DA is dropping the ball. They are not prosecuting the cases. I was a filing deputy. I know we were being ordered to not even look at the cases. We don't even ask for bail on cases of violent criminals, which puts everybody here in Glendora at risk. I've been forced to apply for a CCW through the County of Los Angeles because the city attorney has said for us to go to the county. I'll do that along with other prominent citizens in Glendora. If we're refused, then we'll be forced to take legal action against the county, the city, and unfortunately, the officials in the city. The Supreme Court is about to rule on a
Mr. Harold,
case.
You've used up your 3 minutes.
All right, I'll speak again at another time.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Kimberly Jordison.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to, first of all, I would like to agree with the comments made by John Harold regarding the concealed carry gun permits. Everything that he said rings true. Our city is very unsafe. The biggest reason why I wanted to speak tonight, though, is because of the proposed COVID Memorial Day resolution. I also emailed the members this morning and did receive a couple of responses that I wasn't really happy with. And I don't believe that the proposal is a good idea for our city, especially now that we are moving, lifting mandates and moving on with our lives, which is long overdue. And you know, especially for healthy individuals. I have requested that a discussion take place, and the response from the mayor basically said that she wasn't going to do that, which I'm not very happy about. There are multiple people in our city, and I'm sure people that we don't know about, that don't agree with this proposed proclamation. And I don't think that just because other people are doing something that we should just follow suit, as the mayor indicated that other people are doing it. And so it's kind of like, if other people are jumping off of a bridge, are we going to do that too? You know, it doesn't make sense. So I know that there are other members of the city council that don't agree with this, and their opinions are not being taken into account, and a discussion is not being made regarding this. So again, I'm requesting that a discussion before something like this just gets proclamated and passed by the mayor unilaterally, that there is a discussion regarding this matter. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if you noticed earlier in the meeting that item was pulled off the agenda as well. And so thank you. And Mr. Joe Cena.
Okay, hello, everybody. Hello, Mayor Davis, City Council, City staff. My name is Joe Cena, President and CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce, and I thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm going to kind of go over some events we're doing, because we are back. We have been back live the last couple months. We have some fun stuff coming up. First, I want to let the viewing audience know about the Glendora State of the City, which our Mayor Davis will be the keynote speaker, coming up here on March 24th at 11:30 a.m. at the Glendora Country Club. Tickets can be purchased at glendorastateofthecity.com or on the Chamber website. Or if you have any questions, just give me a call at the Chamber. We also have our normal networking lunch coming up here on this Thursday at Spaghetti Eddie's. At this lunch, we're going to be talking about our Legislative Action and Economic Development Committee meeting. Our new chair of that committee, Ryan Audison, and I will be talking about what the committee does and the importance of our business community to pay attention to what we're talking about. Because the chamber works hard along with the city and other partners throughout the valley to keep track of upcoming bills in the state and federal levels. and upcoming propositions that we may be voting on coming up here soon, because there's a number of them that we're watching. So then we have a couple of workshops on the 15th, the Insider's Guide to Internet Services. And on the 22nd, we'll be talking about the CalSavers and other business retirement plan options, because for those that own businesses and have 5 or more employees, within the year, every business will have to have a retirement plan for their employees. So we're putting information together on that. Looking ahead to the end of May, we're going to bring back our Cuisines of the Foothills Restaurant Week. We are doing a restaurant week again this year, and we're going to be putting on the Ritz is the theme, but more to come on the passwords to fun and great food. So cuisinesofthefoothills.com. It will be May 16th through the 22nd, but more details to come. So again, I thank you, and I wish you the best for the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cena. And Judy Nelson, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Mrs. Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I appreciate that the proclamation recognizing COVID and all that went on with COVID was pulled tonight by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer and seconded by Councilmember Alowith and voted on by four out of 5 of you. I'm curious what's going to happen with that proclamation now. If you could fill us in tonight, maybe when you get to your own public comments, so that we understand, does that kill the proclamation, or is there further plans for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
We have one.
Linda Galeris.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to direct my question to the city manager, Mr. Adam Raymond. Mr. Raymond, I was in my friend's shop in Laverne today, and I was telling her that our city council meeting is being held tonight on Zoom. She was shocked. Being very active in her community, she regularly attends council meetings in Laverne. She also said that San Dimas city council meetings are being held in chambers. Later this afternoon, out of curiosity, I called the Laverne, San Dimas, and Azusa city halls. All of them are meeting in person and have been doing so since before this January. Azusa has been meeting in person for about a year. Our very own school board in Glendora has also been conducting in-person meetings for quite a while. So I guess my question is, why are we not meeting in our beautiful Glendora City Hall building? I also noticed on your website that the important public health and safety message, it seems to be somewhat out of date as it discusses the Delta variant, which was a while back, and it doesn't mention Omicron. And I don't know if these things need updating. So anyway, just wondering why we're not meeting in person.
Thank you. Are you finished, Ms. Galeris?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, the city manager will be giving the update on COVID, and I'm sure during that time he will address that question. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
No, we don't have any other raised hand icons for the meeting attendees.
Okay, and have you received any other comments via email?
None via email at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then with that, I will close public comment and bring it back to the council for statements and reports. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I have 5 things that I'll be or try to be fast about. I want to say thank you to our city staff for lighting up our city hall. We are all, I'm sure, very upset, distraught, and saddened by the war that has been going on. And I'm very happy that City Hall has been shown to be supportive of people that have had little to no choice in all of this war. And so thank you for that. And Madam Mayor, thank you for the statement which you wrote and shared. And I believe that was spot on. I pray, as others do, that this war will cease soon and lives will be spared. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that was a part of illuminating the City Hall in the colors that it is. I also want to say that this is a special day as women around the entire world are honored. And I think it's appropriate that we pause and honor not only those that we are married to. I know that I'm honored by my wife, but Madam Mayor, thank you for the strength, the courage, the leadership, the service which you give. And I want to say thank you to all of the those that are a part of our staff. They do amazing work, and our city would not be the city it is without the women that lead us and share the skills which they have. So thank you to each and every one of you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the leadership which you give. Baseball is on strike, but it's really not, because Lassie League is going strong. American will kick off Saturday at 10:30, and National League will kick off at 9 o'clock. So if you're looking for some quality baseball, there is quality baseball going on, softball going on, and it's a wonderful time to get out and celebrate the youth that are working hard to acquire a very incredible skill. Goal line, I'll keep it short. The bridges are being built. The station is being built. A lot of structural work is being done. And so thank you to each one of them that are working so hard. There's hundreds of workers out there. And so Goal Line is, doing just very, very well. And this is a special month. It was 24 months ago when I chose to step away from my day job and COVID hit. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that has contributed so much to seeing the curve go down. Although there's been a lot of grief and loss, I celebrate the fact that it appears that COVID is going down. We need to continue to stay safe, but thank you to each and every one, from healthcare to doctors, nurses, and each one of us who have taken steps to make sure that this is going down. So thank you. And Madam Mayor, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. I first like to thank the Goal Line Construction Authority for fixing the northbound Barranca Center Lane at the tracks, and for Mendel for continuing to stay on it. I no longer get airborne, so thank you very much, Mendel.
Thank you.
And the scrape marks are gone. I'm requesting a second to review and discuss the approval process of proclamations, including the verbiage that they contain.
I would second us looking at a process so that we can have a clear path going forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Point of clarification there, Councilman. Previously, we discussed several items similar to proclamations. Would the request be to review all of those, or only proclamations?
Only proclamations, because we did have that review of all the awards when we did the Mom Award. So I think it's appropriate that we touch the proclamations. And so I believe there are no rules or regulations for it.
We also have resolutions that are similar to proclamations that are also passed.
Would you like to include that?
That would be great if we could have both of those items.
I don't want to overtax you, Adam.
I think we're beyond
That's a
that
whole
point.
different council
Yes.
conversation about that.
Okay, let it be done. When do you think we can bring it back to the council?
Happy to have a conversation with the council in April, if that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I too would like to acknowledge and recognize the significance of the illumination on City Hall for the atrocities in Ukraine and our country's solidarity toward that effort of resolving it. On a nicer note, I'd like to thank the community services and recreation staffs for their working with our youth leagues on sports to get kids outdoors and some indoors for basketball, but getting those systems going again and returning our families' activities to some sense of normalcy, quote unquote, whatever that's going to be. But this is a great step back to what we expect life to be in our community. So look forward to that and seeing all the results of the great team. So thanks to all the young men and women and the boys and girls that are enjoying their efforts. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thank you, Karen. I just want to answer, speak on a couple of questions that were asked at public comment. To Judy's question, I think you just saw the answer to your question. We will continue to have a conversation about what is next. And then as far as the in-person meetings go, one thing that in Glendora, we have a bit of a disadvantage of at our council chambers is our council chambers are extremely small compared to that of many of our neighbors. And so where other meeting rooms have the ability to spread out a little bit more, we have not had that pleasure. And so I'm sure Adam will be discussing that next, but that's one of the reasons we are not back, is all of us would have liked to have gotten back a lot sooner than now. I got to say, before the meeting, I forgot we didn't have a closed session. So I was ready at 6 o'clock, decided to take a walk through Fink Minor Park and saw young ladies over there playing softball. And it's just great to see these kids out again and just to give the same kudos that others did, that let's hope this is the beginning of getting us back to normal. I'd also like to acknowledge we had the trivia challenge put on by the Glendora Friends of the Library Foundation on Thursday. It was a great event. It was all virtual, and we did the questions virtually on computers, and it was a lot of fun. We had a chance to participate. Unfortunately, some of our colleagues were not available, but Michael and I represented the council along with his wife, Cynthia. And all I can say is we're sorry. We did not represent the council well.
I did watch that, and I would concur with your assessment.
Oh, my goodness. But we will study for next year. We'll be ready next year.
Well, Karen, you can't win if you don't play.
That's why I didn't play.
So I just want to note, I was in Sacramento last week and had an opportunity. One of the things we did is we were there supporting Senators Anthony Portantino and Tom Unberg with some legislation, SB Senate Bill 986, that's going to make it much easier for us to get convictions on catalytic converters. There's actually 9 different catalytic converter bills being submitted this year. So Sacramento knows what we're dealing with the catalytic converters, and they are listening to our concerns. We had a really good meeting with the Attorney General's office that I'm hoping will help to bring some clarification as far as our housing element moving forward. But it's always good to go to those meetings. And I've said this many times, that we go to these meetings and conferences and we will be there for days, and we get about 1 hour's worth of really quality information, but you never know when that hour is going to be. So the time we spend there is always worthwhile. And those are the 2 highlights of spending a few days up there. I've got one other issue before I get into what's going to take me a little time here. Attended a water meeting, and where we got a report on the scientific studies study being done on water qualities for the Los Angeles River district. And I got to tell you, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this, and sometimes we forget about the people that are out there doing all of these studies and checking our water tables and the pollution that's going into the ground to make sure that the water that we get when we turn our faucets on is safe for all of us. So kudos to the people that do that, and those types of things are going on. And it's important that we know that we do have people watching out for us. And the last item I have, I'm going to look to Kathleen for some help. We, as we know, with the 2020 census, we got new districts for all of our elected officials. And for the most part, our assembly district, our Senate district, our supervisor will still be Catherine Barger. Those districts in the city of Glendora did not change. So everything is still the same. We went through the process here at Glendora and we changed the lines just slightly. But our congressional districts in the city of Glendora changed dramatically. And I thought it was important the minute we got the final issues that we at least address this a little bit. And Kathleen's going to zoom in on this map for me. And I got to tell you, it's really interesting the way they drew these lines, because it used to be Glendora was split in half at the freeway, which none of us like, but at least it made a little bit of sense. The new lines, Glendora is split at Sierra Madre. So the people that live above Sierra Madre are in a different congressional district than the people that live below Sierra Madre, which again, I don't try to make sense out of this. I'm just sharing the information. What really makes it a little bit screwy, Kathleen, if you can move east a little bit with it, you'll see a couple of little jogs down there. That is right between Vermont and Glendora Avenue, and over on Vista Bonita. For whatever reason, somebody thought it was a good idea to add about 10 to 15 homes to the 28th congressional district and take them away from the 31st congressional district. Why that happens, I have absolutely no idea. If we keep moving further east, we get to the corner of Sierra Madre and Lorraine, and the line actually goes past Lorraine just a little bit to Tranter. It goes south on Tranter to Northridge and then back to Lorraine. Again, a little cutout that doesn't make sense, but makes it extremely confusing for our residents. As we go down Lorraine, I'm looking for my notes here. We go down Lorraine and it again turns east on La Flora Lane, okay, which is not a major street in town. It jogs in one block to Humphreys, back down to Bennett, comes back into Lorraine again, goes further south to Foothill. And then once we get to Foothill, where does it go? It goes east over to Trainer, south to Carroll, west on Carroll to Burnaby, south on Burnaby to Stephan, back to Lorraine again, continues south on Lorraine, and then it divides the city at the railroad tracks, not even at a street. The railroad tracks, it goes down, meets at Route 66 and continues in what we would consider a normal pattern all the way to the edge of town on Route 66. So to try to simplify this, bottom line is, if you are south of Sierra Madre and west of Lorraine, you are going to be in the 31st congressional district that currently is represented by Grace Napolitano. If you're north of Sierra Madre or east of Lorraine and north of Route 66, you're going to be in the 28th congressional district that is currently represented by Judy Chu. I'd like to just point out to people that live near Lorraine or that live near Sierra Madre, it might be important for you to go to the website that is wedrawthelineca.org. And they actually have a tool there that you can plug in your address to be 100% sure where what district you're in, but this is what we're dealing with. This is a major change for the city of Glendora, an extremely unusual one for there to be a line drawn at the very northernmost part of the city. So that's what we are dealing with. And Kathleen, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
The only other thing that might be helpful for everybody is that the congressional district numbering sequence has changed as well.
Yeah.
So Judy Chu is now 28 and then Grace is 31. So, and if you look at the website, we draw the lines.ca.org. It also has the final map and the final report that outlines some of the numbering changes as well.
Okay, appreciate it, Kathleen. That's all I have. Have fun with that.
And Kathleen, for clarity, this won't take an effect until the June election, correct?
That is my understanding. I think it's already, they're converting all the information to the new maps now, but it will start with the June election.
Thank you.
Michael, what I was told by Congresswoman Chu's office was that we will be represented by our current congressperson up until the June election results are finalized.
All right, thank you.
So that's when it's supposed to change.
That's what they had on the website. Just want clarity.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Thompson, I want to thank you for allowing Bruin Colors to be on the front of City Hall.
Well, it's appropriate, so thank you.
Yes, no, but in all seriousness, as we've said, whenever there is injustice or oppression anywhere in our world, whether it's Ukraine, Afghanistan, Guinea, or any other place where people are facing war, violence, and innocent people are suffering, none of us can rest. And we stand together with all those who are being persecuted and continue to pray for peace. Because the one thing that unites us across the globe, across our nation, across our community is our humanity. And our care and concern for one another is something that we can share in common despite any differences. As Mr. Thompson said, this week marks the 2-year anniversary since a global pandemic was declared. We remember that the city of Glendora lost more than 220 residents as a result, and we are thankful for the healthcare workers, the frontline workers, the teachers, the business owners, the city workers, and everyone who came together to care for each other and to make sure that they got things done. Hopefully now we are turning a corner and looking together to a brighter future. Coming up this week on March 11th, 5 to 7 p.m., Empty Bowls, as we continue to raise funds to help those who are facing food insecurity. And also on Sunday, the Crop Walk beginning at 1 p.m. at the United Methodist Church. Both of those efforts to try to help agencies locally and even globally as they meet the needs of those who find themselves in difficult situations. With that, that takes us to the city manager and city attorney statements. Mr. Raymond or Mr. Winder, anything that you have to report at this time?
I'll hold my statements for the COVID update.
Okay.
I have nothing to add except to note that while there were some cities in LA County that met during COVID, the city of Glendora followed the health county orders and the state county orders. And so I think the city has done extremely well in complying with those orders, even though some of your sister cities flaunted those orders, unfortunately.
Thank you. Right, that takes us to item number 3, the COVID-19 reopening of the economy update. Mr. Raymond.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Happy to be here this evening. A couple different topics. This will actually probably be the last standing COVID update I've had to do so far. We've had over 35 of them in a 2-year period. As you'll notice, if you enter City Hall or any of the other city facilities, quite a bit of movement the last 2 weeks as it relates to masking and verification from both either a negative test and or vaccination status as it relates to not wearing a mask inside most facilities. So we've updated our signage on our buildings to allow for all of those. I know my children who are in Glendora Unified Schools are excited for March 12th when they won't have a mask at school either. So there are still currently some areas for the public that where masking will be required. Those generally have a federal mandate associated with them. They include healthcare, public transit, adult and senior care facilities, detention centers, and homeless and emergency shelters. But for all intents and purposes, from a return to normal, while we are not quite there, many of the freedoms are back. And so we will only be providing updates moving forward. As it relates to the question this evening about meeting in person, as the Mayor Pro Tem indicated, there's a standing item, the second meeting of every month, that adopts a continuing resolution to allow staff in the various bodies, planning commission, city council, library board, etc., to meet remotely. Our council chambers, being on more of the small side, required us to adhere to a set of standards, health standards, which would make it really difficult for audiences viewing to hear the broadcast if individuals had to wear face masks while speaking into a microphone. In order to have the best quality and the ability to interact with both the public and not have to adhere to some shortage of seats in the council chambers as it relates to some capacity constraints, the city council made the decision to continue meeting remotely during that time. We'll actually have the conversation on the potential return to live meetings in April on our next meeting, which is March 22nd. We'll be having that discussion. The city clerk's office has been working with departments if the council chooses that methodology or a hybrid, to ensure that staff and some of our board and commission members who have not been in the city council chambers for a meeting have the ability to train and ensure that they can use the software and voting systems accordingly. As it relates to the information on the city's website, the information that was quoted earlier is actually a link to the county's website. The city also has about 20 different sections on our COVID page. It still remains one of the most frequently visited pages on the city's website. And it includes updated information, policy letters the city has sent asking for more local control over public health protocols, and other information. That website will continue to be updated on an as needed basis, and links to all the appropriate bodies, CDC, California, the Department of Public Health, and LA County Public Health. If there's any information that people feel is necessary or missing, please let us know. We'd be happy to take a look at that. So with that, looking forward to seeing a lot more smiling faces in City Hall. It's been great to see people coming in and out, and some people we haven't seen in a long time, and including a couple long members that attended some council meetings. So with that, Mayor, turn it back over for any questions that you may have, or the rest of the council members. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Mayor, I have a question for Adam. Adam, so is before we actually, when we went into COVID, we put in some AV equipment that allowed us to do both a hybrid. Have we tested that lately, and is that still going to be available?
Yeah, so we did early on when we thought we were going to have a much shorter time away, move forward with implementing software and hardware that would allow us to do some remote public comment at the same time as people who would come into the facility. I think as what we've seen from this, everyone has different comfort levels on how they want to interact with the public. And so our goal and sort of the council's direction was to find as many ways to both take and acknowledge public comment. And we will continue to do so. Kathleen, if you wouldn't mind jumping on really quick, we've tested a lot of that previously, and we'll continue to do so to ensure that if the public would like to make public comment remotely when we return in person, that they're able to do so.
Correct. Actually, we're going to be testing the system out next week. And we're looking at what needs to get done in order to ensure that as people come back to the in-person meetings, that the space is a little bit more open to allow a little bit more flexibility in and out of the area, and to allow people to either come in and speak at the meeting itself, or still be able to call in either under public comment or under public hearing, public testimony.
So is it fair to say that by the end of the month or by the first meeting in April that the facility or the space will be ready?
Yes.
Okay, last question I have for you, Adam. I was reading an article in Political that the American Recovery Act funds, the second tranche, may get diverted to other areas of the federal government that needs the funds. Is that true?
We've seen and heard some whispers that could be true. It's actually come up 3 other times after the ARPA funds were approved, actually. Moises, are you on the call?
I am, yes.
Perfect. Would you mind sharing a little behind the scenes background in terms of the legislation and possible uses?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. There's been a couple of points over the last several months related to the use of the ARPA funding. Before or after the ARPA funding was granted to all jurisdictions, there's been discussions about the possibility of expanding the applicability of the use of those funds. You may recall that when the National Infrastructure Bill was being discussed and considered, there was some discussion that that infrastructure bill could be funded in part by using some of the ARPA money. That did not occur. There is some other pieces of legislation that have been introduced that would broaden the use of ARPA money for more infrastructure type uses beyond wastewater, water, and broadband infrastructure that are currently allowed. So I would anticipate that the conversation relative to the use of those funds would continue, but we haven't received any certainty as to whether or not those changes would occur. But I can share with you, and I think what we alluded to when we presented the report for the improvements to Finkbeiner Park, is that the U.S. Treasury Department did publish final final rules for the use of that funding that did narrow down in certain areas the applicability for that particular funding source. That being said, there still remains a lot of other funding opportunities, or I should rather, there exist other ways in which we can invest that money into our community. We've done that through the Small Business Assistance Program, through the Nonprofit Assistance Program. We're looking to make additional investments in our community through the available channels of money.
Wonderful. So we should know sometime by May what's going on with these funds?
Yeah.
That's correct. That is when we are tentatively scheduled to receive that second tranche of ARPA money.
Wonderful. Thank you all for answering the questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Raymond. That takes us to public hearings. We have none. Next is the consent calendar. Items 4 through 6 can be approved with one motion.
I move items 4 through 6 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes,
That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. Next, member agenda items. Tonight we have none. That takes us to unfinished business. Item 7, authorize the Public Works Director to execute the contract change order for Cullen Avenue water and street improvements for installation of sidewalks between Foothill Boulevards and Bennett Avenue. And tonight to report on that, Civil Engineering Assistant Escobar. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'm Alexis Escobar. I'll be presenting on a change order 2 for the Cullen Avenue water and street improvement projects. May I have the next slide, please? The Cullen Avenue street and water improvement projects was beginning construction for the water and street improvements. In order to enhance pedestrian safety around Finkbeiner Park, we were asked to investigate the feasibility of constructing sidewalks along Cullen Avenue. We did so, and I'll present today the contract change order number 2 for this project, which includes constructing 88 access ramps, new sidewalk on the east side of Cullen Avenue from Foothill Boulevard to Mountain View Avenue, and a new bulb out with sidewalk on the west side of Cullen Avenue from Lester West Way to Bennett Avenue. Next slide, please. Here we have the project map, which shows the sidewalk on the east side of Cullen Avenue and from Foothill to Mountain View, and on the west side from Lester West to Bennett. The sidewalk location is highlighted in purple. The other areas on Cullen Avenue have existing sidewalk, so this will create a continuous path of travel. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the existing condition. There are no curb ramps and no sidewalks in portions of Cullen Avenue. We will construct sidewalks and consider proper clearances around utility poles such as the one shown here. Next slide, please. The construction cost will be $147,267 for the change order, plus a 10% contingency of $14,726, which would add up to a budget appropriation of $161,994. The work will be done by the current contractor on the Cullen Avenue project, which is Gentry Brothers. The contract is expected to be completed by May 3rd, but I will say that construction is moving a lot quicker than that, and we should be done with the project before May 3rd. Next slide, please. We have the recommendations here, and I do want to correct recommendation. No, I'm sorry, this one's correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis, for that report. I'll bring it back to the council for any questions or comments. Councilmember Thompson.
No, I think this is good. It's an important move, especially with everybody that is using the park. I think it will be a public safety ad, and I like that. The work does seem to be going well. I've been down there a couple of times for some events, and they clean up well and they work hard. And so thank you for this update and the good work that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you for the report. I'm looking forward to this being completed. It's been necessary for a number of years. And so thank you very much for staying on it and making the city better for it. Thanks again.
Hey, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Alexis, thank you. Question I have is looking at the sidewalks. I know there was discussion with the resident on the west improvement site. Were the residents on the east site receptive to adding sidewalks to their yards? And was there much pushback? Hopefully they were encouraged by the improvement.
Yeah, we talked to the residents and the owners of the 4 properties on the east side. There were some concerns, mainly concerning some of the trees that we had to remove, but we were able to discuss which trees we could protect, and we were able to actually protect some of the trees that we originally thought we would have to remove. We will be planting more trees in place of that. And after all those discussions, it appears to me that everybody is satisfied with the final result.
Good, that's encouraging. So thank you for a great improvement and a nice amendment to the project. It's a great win. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thanks, Karen. Alexis, great job. You guys have really went above and beyond reaching out to the people that live in the community there. I've talked to a number of the residents right there that were not real happy in the beginning, but they they're happy with the work that's being done, the care that's being taken, the fact that you've been able to save some trees that we didn't think we were going to. So kudos to everybody involved in it. And I think it's going to make everyone in the community a lot safer as we're heading to Finkbeiner for our movies in the park and things like that in this summer. So I appreciate the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
I'll move that we accept the recommendations as presented to ratify the contract and add in the supplemental appropriation as the reserve.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Friedendahl, a second by Councilmember Alawas. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes,
That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. And thanks again, Alexis.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 8, consider waiving business license taxes to make housing more affordable. And with that, I'll invite Assistant City Manager Lopez to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you
Moises?
tonight- Yes, sir.
Oh, it's scary. They, with this particular item, I know that I'm the one that requested it, but the fact that it does affect me personally and in my business, and I am a landlord here in town, I feel the need to recuse myself from the discussion. Do I do that now or do I do it after the presentation? Looking for guidance, Bill?
You can listen to the staff report. You'll
Okay.
recuse yourself. You're free to speak as a citizen, but not as a council member if you need to, if you feel the need to do that. And you'll need to turn off your microphone and your camera before the vote is taken.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies, Mayor Pro Tem, for jumping in so quickly there. The report before you tonight is a follow-up item to a discussion that the council had on February 22nd. At that time, staff presented an initial concept that would consider waiving the business license tax fees for rental properties, more specifically, multiple family residential properties in the city, to help make housing that much more affordable in our community. That program or that policy, proposed initiative followed discussions the council had in the previous year related to inclusionary housing, just the broader concepts of things that we can do as a city to help address housing affordability in our community specifically. Following direction that we received on February 22nd, staff was directed to provide some information on a program that would waive the business license fee for any rental property in the city if the property owner agrees not to increase the rent on an annual basis through a certification process. We were tasked with working with our business license tax administrator, HDL, to discuss a way in which we can make this process as seamless as possible, as well as include a verification reaching out to renters of those affected properties to confirm that in fact the rent had not been increased. Following discussions with our business license tax administrator, we found that it would be relatively easy to incorporate that certification process through our existing application process for any rental property owner in our community. Secondarily, it would also be relatively easy to include that verification process, again, working with HDL to verify that the rent in and of itself would not increase for that particular year. I do want to add a point of clarification to the presentation that we gave from last time. We cited that there are currently 124 residential properties in the city that have active business license tax licenses that allow for rental units in our community. I want to clarify that those 124 residential properties include all rental properties in the city. So that ranges from one rental unit all the way to in excess of 200 rental units in our community. So the figures that we shared with you previously are the same figures that we're sharing with you tonight. Should all property owners of rental properties in the city choose to pursue this particular waiver process, the total anticipated impact would be just over $9,300 to the city's revenue stream. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer some questions. I believe finance staff is also on the line in case any questions may be directed to them.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any real questions. I was sold on this the first time around. I'm ready for a motion, but I would imagine that my colleagues would like to opine on this.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions, and we had some discussion this morning during my staff briefing. I appreciate that. I just wonder, while the intent is fabulous and to anything we can do to help affordability is remarkable, I just challenge how many landlords will actually extend this opportunity to their tenants. Of course, that's a crystal ball type of thing. We'll never be able to measure that. But I don't know. I wonder how much of this will actually get to the people on the boots on the ground to recognize it. And while we have an estimated loss of revenue in the $9,300 range of potential license fees, I think we also have to remember that HDL is working for either a percentage of revenue or piece count or hourly or something. So that meter, albeit not many occurrences, is still running. They're due their compensation for work. So there's an unknown fee there. And I think we need to clearly identify the wording in this when it gets to the actual process, so that it's talking about validation, that the fee is only waived if in fact it gets validated as a process, instead of the landlord just saying, well, take my money and not passing it along. And then I guess, do we have a thought or a direction on, is this into perpetuity, or is this have a sunset on it? And when the economy gets better, what's our hope for that? Do we know?
Council member, as is currently proposed, there would be no sunset on this particular initiative. Certainly entertain that if that is the council's desire.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. I would echo what David said, the questions that he had. I guess I would only have one, and I don't want to get into the weeds because we're a policy-making board, but could you describe the process? Who's going to verify and enforce this? Is the city going to be doing that? Is HDL going to be doing that? That's just kind of I'm just curious about that, because if the landlord, as David said, well, I'm going to do this, and I don't want to pay the fee, then who's going to go out and talk with the Joneses to make sure that he or she didn't try to circumvent this law?
Sure, council member. When a business owner would start the process through a typical application process for a business tax license, and if they request the waiver, there will be an attestation attached to that application that would require them to certify under the penalty of perjury that they will not increase the rent for that particular year. Subsequent to that, HDL, our partner, would then reach out to the renter to confirm that has actually happened.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. I think this is a good step. I'm not convinced that a lot of landlords are going to do it, but we've never done this, so why don't we give it a try? And so I am going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I share the same questions and concerns that Councilmember Friedendahl and Councilmember Thompson shared, that I want to make sure that the renters were the ones receiving the benefit. And, while anything we could do to reduce the cost of housing is great, this is, I see as just one of many, many things that can be done. And so I would caution us not to see this as the end all, but maybe just a very tiny beginning of what we can do going forward.
So Mayor, with that being said, since this is a policy, David, we can end this anytime we want as a council and moving forward. And secondly, as Moise has said, that there's an affidavit process that they have to confirm and a follow-up that they actually are passing this through. So the checks and balances are in place. So with that, I move to direct staff to implement the necessary business license adjustments, giving landlords the option to remove their business license fee in exchange to not raise their rents with the appropriate oversight and affidavits.
Second.
Second, yeah, okay.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. Actually, he's recused himself from the vote.
Yes.
Mayor,
Chocolate cake.
sorry. Mayor Davis,
Yes.
and that passes 4-0-1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor.
That takes us to item 9, conduct a mid-year budget review and consider a resolution amending the fiscal year 2021-22 budget. And tonight, to report on this, Assistant Director of Finance, Kyle Johnson. Welcome, Kyle.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. All right. So the item before you tonight is the mid-year budget review for the fiscal year 2021-2022 year. The slide here needed to be updated, but we are in fiscal year 2022, not fiscal year 2021. That's back when COVID happened. I think we're out of that now, or so I've heard.
It's a good thing you're in charge of the numbers, Kyle.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please. So tonight we'll discuss the mid-year review process. We'll have a discussion on the general fund and Measure E, other funds, including the streets, special revenue funds, capital projects, the water funds, next steps in the budget process, and the recommendation tonight for council. Next slide, please. So the mid-year review process, just like the annual or biannual review process, starts at the department level. Our new budgeting platform, OpenGov, is set up for the departments to go in, review their budget and year-to-date information, and make adjustments as needed. Following that, the finance comes in and reviews it with the departments, doing a preliminary review. If we have any questions, then we follow up with the city manager to get his review and any questions he may have, and include the assistant city manager as well. On here is a list of the typical adjustments where revenues are trending up or down. Maybe we've received revenues that are grant related that we didn't include in the adopted budget because we weren't sure if we were going to receive them or not, if the application was going to be successful, or expenditures are trending one way or another. And so we've reduced or increased expenditure budgets. So, and these updates provide the new basis for the next budget cycle, in addition to our second year budget. So next slide, please. So the next couple of slides will focus on general fund Measure E. Of note, over these next couple of slides is that the city, we did create a new Measure E fund. Measure E is still a general tax and not legally restricted to be spent on any specific item like gas tax, Measure R, Measure M, those would be streets or transportation, or any grant related items we might receive. But this will allow us to increase the transparency of what we're spending Measure E funds on and enhance our tracking of programs and activities that are funded by Measure E. As you can see, the mid-year adjustments net to a positive outcome for the general fund. There is a negative or decrease in revenue for the general fund, and then an overall increase by $5 million in Measure E. If we go to the next slide, please. That decrease is related to the start item there of almost $3.9 million, or just above $3.9 million, where we split out Measure E proactively or prospectively. So we stopped it as of January 1. We said, okay, we've got this much money in the general fund. We're going to leave it here, and we're going to start this new fund, Measure E, as mentioned before, for transparency reasons, to really track where we're spending our Measure E dollars. And this also allows us to show the dependence that the general fund has on Measure E, which is the second start item on this slide of the $2.3 million. That's the investment by Measure E that the general fund needs in order to balance the general fund budget and meet our 45%, our maximum 45% contingency reserve. As you can see, sales tax also went up by $1 million. And as we move to the next slide, we'll see that we did the $5 million adjustment, but the total increase in Measure E between the general fund and the new Measure E fund is $1.2 million. So that's a total of $2.2 million increase over our sales taxes revenue. These are the expenditures in the general fund. The large item in non-departmental is a reprogramming of our vacancy assumptions. So the initial budget assumptions, budget for each position be filled for 12 months of the year. We realize that that's not likely to happen. So we put in this number to address that not every position will be filled for 100% of the year. And then the next one down, the police department, that large item is just related to moving certain personnel from general fund to Measure E, because that was one of the items that Measure E was projected to help to keep our police force and maintain services there. Other increases amongst the other funds are just general operating items, kind of the net impact of certain increases and decreases in operating items. The big one in Public Works was related to the January 2022 windstorm event, the extra tree cost there. Next slide, please. So we're on Measure E now. The shows $5 million there. So if you add the two together, what's left in the general fund and what's here in Measure E, it's about a total of almost $8 million of total revenue expected from Measure E in FY22. Going forward, FY23 and beyond, all of the revenue for Measure E will be in the new Measure E fund. And this is shown also on the forecast in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. So these are the expenditure adjustments for Measure E. Police department, as mentioned earlier, it's not quite a one-for-one. There is a new position request, a management analyst. That's noted on the slide, a new FTE in addition to the other positions that were moved out of the general fund. And new with the creation of the Measure E fund as well, is we're being more proactive in now we're going to budget our transfers that are related to our reserve policy. So we've got the transfers for the pension stabilization fund, capital projects fund, and liability insurance, because that's the one that, based on my review, was looking like it could project a deficit based on the requirements of our general fund reserve policy. So this is going to help us plan for the future, kind of know what we're looking for. Actual transfers will be dependent upon actual results at the end of the year, but now we have this above the line, and we will see it and kind of know what we need to continue our investments in the future of the city. Next slide, please. So now with the creation of the Measure E fund, we've got three multi-year forecasts related to general fund and Measure E, a combination one, general fund and Measure E combined, general fund only, and Measure E only. General fund only shows the reliance the general fund has on Measure E, and Measure E, again, transparency and tracking of the programs and activities funded by Measure E, as well as budgeting for those reserve policy transfers. Note, and as we progress there, these are going to be high-level slides. So next slide, please. There's a lot more detail on the attachments to this agenda report, including notes to each line item as numbered there. On the left-hand side, right now we're showing numbers 28 through 37. I did try to expand certain items on these presentations just to show the change of doing the combined forecast and then the two solo forecasts for the general fund and Measure E. The ones on here on the combined forecast, I broke out the fact that we're now budgeting for those reserve policy transfers to show the investment in CIP, the pension stabilization fund, and the potential to the internal service funds for any deficits in those funds. Next slide, please. And then on here, we have the transfer. This is the general fund only. We have the transfers in for Measure E just to show the reliance on that the general fund has on Measure E. We're looking at about $2.5 to $3 million over the course of the forecast. The line 31 here is representative of what the amount needed to meet our maximum 45% contingency reserve. Next slide, please. And Measure E doesn't have too much activity in it yet, in that it's a new fund. So I was able to include all the lines except for the notes. So go to the attachment for any additional notes. I guess what's shown here, but also included on the previous forecast, are the PERS rates as a percentage of pay. These are inclusive of the recent 21.3% return and the discount rate reduction to 6.8%. I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And again, kind of breaking out the different transfers to the general fund and in line with the capital projects or with the capital projects transfer, pension stabilization, and internal service fund. The one capital project on there is for the Finkbeiner restroom, tennis court, pickleball, parking lot. I think there's one other item on there in that list for the Finkbeiner project. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the impact of Measure E on the general fund reserve. So the blue line is the general fund with the Measure E, general fund reserve with Measure E, and what it would look like if we started 21-22 without Measure E. Now, this is also status quo. This assumes we take no corrective action and we just don't have Measure E. So we can see as of 26-27, we start to dip into the negative, just less than $1 million. So Measure E is really a critical revenue, and it's an amazing thing that the community rallied around and supported. So next slide, please, to help maintain services for the community. So you're good. So these are some potential challenges. CalPERS is always on the list, whether they're doing well or they're doing poorly, just because it fluctuates from year to year. I looked at it just hours ago. Right now, with everything going on, their rate of return is a negative, I'm going to say 0.72%, which is actually closer to a 7.5% loss if their goal is to earn 6.8%. And keeping in mind that the number only really matters once we get to June 30th. So, don't want to sound the alarm yet, but just show the picture of how much it fluctuates year to year, month to month. Future negotiations aren't currently included in the forecast assumptions, along with the other items on the list there. And so next slide, please. Overall, the general fund is in a good place. Measure E is a critical revenue that allows the city to maintain and in some cases enhance current services. And the city is positioned well to fund capital projects, the pension stabilization fund, and internal service funds. Next slide, please. So for special revenue funds, the major changes were in gas tax and SB1, or the RMRA monies, road maintenance and rehabilitation. and our STEP grant, our OTS grant, just to include appropriate revenues and or increase estimated revenues and appropriate expenditures there. The increases to gas tax and the RMRA were made before gas prices were at where they're at now. I don't know that those assumptions that we made that are included here based on the, consultant or source that we get them from, forecasted $7 a gallon gas rates when he was giving us those numbers. And then, any other ones are just related to matching grant items and street related contracts. Next slide, please. All right, we've got one capital project adjustment. That's for the football scoreboard at Pompey Park. So that's, I think if you look on the list on the Exhibit A to the resolution, I think it's for $10,000. Next slide, please. So we have water operations fund and the water capital fund on the next couple of slides, minor increases for interest revenues and expenditure increases for contract services and assessments. So we can go to the next slide. We now have prepared a water forecast for the operations fund and the capital projects fund. Of note that these assumptions the assumptions included on these forecasts do not include any assumptions for the infrastructure assessment or the rate study, because that's still just starting out in a data collection phase. Next slide, please. As you'll see, this is again a high level. If you go to the attachments, the revenues and expenses are broken out, and there are notes attached to this for each line item. The revenues and our expenditures are broken out in the rate components for the utility. So operations and maintenance is kind of your RTS fee and your general consumption. And then we have our purchased water component, energy, and then that transfers out, which is generally the major one is to their capital projects fund. Next slide, please. And this is the operations forecast. Next slide, please. This is the capital fund forecast. The out years for 23, 24 and beyond assume just $5 million coming from the operations fund, generally allowing us to get through most of the capital projects based on our current 5-year CIP. But the reserve available in the capital projects fund starts to dwindle as we look at the out years down to $3.2 million. Granted, once we get further into the infrastructure assessment, and that'll change that will change some of our assumptions for our 5-year CIP. And once we get into the rate study, that may change revenue assumptions and the related transfer from the operations fund to the capital projects fund. Next slide, please. Similar challenges in the water forecast slide as there are in the general fund and Measure E forecast. Next slide, please. So we had some increases in our internal service funds, estimated claims. We saw had more activity there than originally anticipated. We have an increase to implement or improve our disaster recovery plan for IT for the city. And in the vehicles fund, the purchase of a water vehicle purchase, which is a backhoe replacement at this point in time, and then some fuel and parts change adjustments. Next slide, please. So this is a quick reconciliation of the personnel changes. So at the very top, we have what's happened so far during the fiscal year 22, where we in January, we added the IT director position, and also during the year, we upgraded the senior librarian position to library services manager. And then for mid-year, we have a net increase of 6.5 positions. The legend on the side indicates which positions are linked. For example, the senior accounting technician and accounting technician. That's a net 0 increase, but we're upgrading the one accounting technician position to a senior accounting technician based on responsibilities of that position. There are positions on here: management aide, office coordinator, senior management analyst, management aide. These are all a new approach the city is taking for career progression, enhanced service to the public or internally, just to allow opportunities for employees and to enhance services to the public. And I guess one of the which will be internal improvement is the purchasing coordinator that will help coordinate amongst all the departments, the purchasing requirements of the city, get bids online, and to help make sure we have a more streamlined, standardized process, and to help us review the current purchasing ordinance once they're on board. Next slide, please. I guess, this one's pretty straightforward. Work has already started on the mid-cycle update for FY23. So as I sent my email to staff, this is our second year update. Our first second year update was 2021. So this is the second year we've done a two-year budget. So we're on our second year update. Next slide, please. So we received both budget awards. Timing was one of the issues why you don't see the GFOA or CSMFO award on here. We did get both the CSMFO and the GFOA award for our first online only interactive budget. So I can confidently say it was a success. OpenGov worked. And it worked well enough in conjunction with our audited financial statements, our ACFR and our PAFR for the last program award year, that the city was actually awarded GFOA's Triple Crown Medallion. So the real exciting stuff, the exciting part of this presentation, we got a little medallion and some nice paper gold crowns that I guess, I don't know if any staff chose to wear them, but they could if they wanted to. But we were awarded for our ACFR, our PAFR, and our budget document all in 1 year. Next slide, please. And all these documents are available online in addition to our budget and brief and budget by the numbers. Next slide, please. So now the recommendation is for council to approve a resolution amending the estimated revenues and expenditure appropriations for the fiscal year 22. I think the next slide, if it's on there, is just questions. So I'm available for any questions, I think, at this time.
Great.
Includes
Thank you, Kyle. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle, well done. Looks like all you guys on your team should get a mom award. You can wear that big old medal on you.
There you go.
But great job with that. I have a number of questions. There's a lot to unpack here. We've got your budget that you gave us in our little cubby holes the other day in our mail slot. And thank you very much for illustrating what would happen if we did not have the Measure E funds. That's quite substantial. And thank you again to the community for that. So one of the questions I have, I found in the staff report, there was a reserve fund of $16,744,955. And I know that we were talking about a little over $14 million. I didn't write down the page number on the staff report, but what is the actual estimated reserve funds?
So for the general fund, we're projecting our reserve to be $16 million, around $16 million at the end of the year. So we're projecting an increase as a result of the increase in Measure E mostly and sales tax.
Wonderful. That's quite substantial. So why was the focus of the staff report on Measure E?
Because it's a critical revenue, as we showed with that one graph a few slides back, where if we didn't have Measure E, we wouldn't be in such a good situation to be able to enhance our services to the community and internally as well to make operations more efficient. Also, the reason that there was a lot of Measure E conversation in the staff report was due to the fact that we created a new fund for it. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that we created a standalone fund. We had additional forecasts for it, but still to remind everyone that it's still a general tax and it's not restricted similar in any way similar to like our special revenue funds would be for specific programs or purposes.
And I believe when we spoke the other day, you're going to maybe create some stickers or signs saying Measure E funded this.
Yes, I believe that's something we're going to be doing going forward. We'll be putting decals on different items that Measure E has funded. Similar to signs people may see around, whether it's here or other places where you also those SB1 signs, you're funded by your tax dollars at work or something.
Great, thank you. On page 180 of the book here, it shows franchise tax fees increased almost $200,000 from the 2020. Are you projecting that to even go higher? And why do you think the franchise fees are jumping from 2020?
So depending on the book you're referencing, that may be an old book unless somebody went on the website and printed it for you.
No, it's on the annual comprehensive financial report.
Okay, so you're looking at the audit. So that would be prior year's information. So that's comparing 2021 to 2020. So that would be actual results. So franchise fees are interesting. They probably jumped last year because people were at home using more services. They were watching. Maybe they were signing up for TV. They were. I'm trying to think what other franchise fees. I don't know that putting out more trash or anything like that has anything to do with it. But I think using more services related to our franchise fee agreements.
On page 76 of the same book, I didn't quite understand it. There's some projections on there of it's a $10,315,020. It's a government activities unrestricted is an overall increase that we had from the net position is and then on top of that, if you look at the overall total government net position, it's about $15 million to the positive from 2020. Is that largely due because of the POB, the vacant positions in Measure E?
You said page 76?
176.
176.
176. And the total net position is 172,872,423. Can you compare that to 2020?
So so I would say generally the POB has had a positive impact on the city. Also, one of the other reasons probably that we've seen an increase from 2020 to 2021 is we really didn't expect people to stay home and spend as much as they did. So sales tax and Measure E performed very well in 2021. Much better than we anticipated. And that's my, if I'm trying to find the page, because again, we're looking at the audited financial statements right now, right? Not necessarily the budget document.
The questions before us are on the budget. Are you looking at a different document, Councilmember?
No, I'm looking at the comprehensive report, the binder.
The annual comprehensive financial report are the audited financial statements. So sometimes the other major increases in your net position is due to capital investment in capital assets. But so are there other questions on the mid-year?
No, I guess what I'm trying to point out, I guess, is that since we took action on the refinancing the debt for CalPERS, was a huge increase, as well as Measure E. Those were the two biggest drivers of increasing our bottom line. Last
Yes.
question for you, since you brought it up about CalPERS and not making the funds that they had projected. We were projected, I guess, at the next reporting, something in 2 years, is 2-year lag, that we're going to be super funded. Is this going to change that position?
Yes, because we potentially, well, in 2 years, it would. Our payment we'll have the finance when we get our new actuarial study, but generally yes, because we won't be required to pay as much out being super funded. Our normal costs will increase, so our kind of our day-to-day PERS costs for active employees will go up as a result of the discount rate, but not more than not having to pay our UAL because we're super funded.
So you still think we'll still be super funded in 2 years when the actuarial numbers come out?
That's a good question.
Councilman, anything that happens this year won't take effect for another year after that.
Yeah.
So a year after that, what's your crystal ball say?
No crystal ball. If you can tell me what's going to happen on the world
Yeah.
stage, I'd be happier to look in that crystal ball and tell you how CalPERS is going to perform.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, I have another job for you.
I didn't know how much cushion. I didn't know how much cushion we're going to have to weather a storm.
Honestly, Councilman, it's going to largely depend on, and I hate to even say this, but the actions of the Feds in how they're going to look at monetary policy and how the market's going to react to that if there's a prolonged engagement with Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah. And one of the other things that the city is benefiting from too is it's still back related to Measure E and our ability to put money into our pension stabilization.
Yes.
Well,
Kyle, if you wouldn't mind sharing how much is in that fund right now as well.
LG, you want to go? It's like $7.5 million. We doubled it last year.
Okay.
That's outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you again. Well done.
Yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Kyle, thank you. And thank you to the staff. Excellent job and kudos to the awards that you guys won. They're well earned. And so appreciate that. And David and I had extensive time this morning to unpack a lot of this stuff. So thank you for the information that Marie and you and others shared today. I want to continue to express my thanks to the citizens who supported our Measure E. As you can see, the numbers are impressive. And what's more impressive is the stewardship that the city gives to the dollars that we all spend here and things that are getting done. A couple weeks ago, we approved the CIP plan, which is a huge plan to fix and enhance and rebuild a lot of what we use each and every day. And a lot of that is coming forth because of the Measure E and ancillary funds and grants that staff have, been able to get us. Michael touched a little bit on this, but POB, which we did 2 or 3 years back, saved us about $1 million every year. And so that is a huge thing that we continue to enjoy. The investment return, I really liked to see that. This morning, we were briefed on the fact that we are being more aggressive and diligent. Now, aggressive is a tempered term. It doesn't mean that we're taking more risk, but we're just working in a smarter way to maximize the investment that we have. We do have a lot of cash, and nickels can add up quickly. And so our investment return is up more than 300 grand, which I was very pleased to see. It has not been that strong in a long time. I just really don't have a lot of questions. I asked every one of those this morning and believe that we're on track We are financially extremely strong. And I really do appreciate the effort, lastly, to segregate and make more sense of Measure E. I think the citizens want to know what that is and where we're spending it, and what we've earned off of the sales tax, which we all pay. And I really appreciate what has been done there. So with that, I certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kyle, and all of staff, echoing many of the comments already heard, but it's very true. And, we went through the difficult challenge of convince people to vote more burden to themselves with taxes. So I think it's important that we continue to broadcast, if you will, and showcase that the people are really getting what we told them they would see, and that they're seeing something for their money, because all too often that's not the case. They just pay more but can't see where it goes. And the fact that it's staying right here in our community is important. Congratulations on your awards. And hopefully in there we'll find some money for a couple of dirt roads on the east side of town, but we're in good shape for making some help there. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thank you, Karen. No, great presentation, Kyle, and again, to repeat what everybody else has said, for the residents of Glendora, excuse me, for the residents of Glendora to make the decision to invest back into our community is huge. And it's our job to make sure that money is spent wisely. I do just want to make a comment that we sometimes look at this and we've had people go, hey, we voted for this tax increase. Why aren't all the roads fixed? We need to remember that even with this additional money, there's only so much manpower and time to get things done. I will remind people on a regular basis that we have about 200 miles of city streets here in the city of Glendora. And if we could redo 5 miles a year, which is a pretty tall task and almost impossible to accomplish, that's still going to take us 40 years to redo all the streets in town. And by the time we get to the last one, it's going to be time to start over again. So be patient. We appreciate the money. We are looking out for it. A lot of improvements are going on, but not everything can be done at once. So that's it. Thank you. And great job, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle and Marie, and to all the staff in the finance department and all the department heads that helped to contribute to the reviews. With that, I will call for a motion.
I move to adopt the mid-year budget review and a resolution amending the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
I'd like to just make a very quick recommendation that is going to be amended, the title of the resolution to adopt the 2022-23 fiscal budget for mid-year review recommendation.
No, 21-22.
Sorry.
Resolution, the recommendation is correct. It's just the title slide that's incorrect.
The title slide was wrong. Okay. All right. I apologize. Okay. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. And a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you again to everyone for that. And that moves us on to new business. Item 10, accept the award of the $363,988 from the State Water Resources Control Board for the California Water Area Payment Program. And tonight to report on that, Management Analyst Castro, welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, my love.
Hi, so I am Myla Di Castro, as the management analyst. This is actually my first time presenting to the council and mayor, so bear with me if I faint or collapse. Just don't call 911. I'll be okay. All right. So tonight we'll be talking about the arrearage payment program for the water customers. So this program is administered by State Water Resources Control Board, or SWRCB. So they are the one whose regulatory agencies responsible for ensuring that the quality of the state water resources are protected. So this funding is actually came from ARPA, which is funding source provided through SWRCB. Next slide, please. So here's the program overview of the program. So as we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has been made difficult for many Californians to pay their bills due to the job loss, health issues, and other hardships. So as a part of the state efforts to help the Californian recover from the pandemic, the State Water Resources Control Board is offering a financial relief to water agencies for the unpaid customer debt accrued between March 4th, 2020 and June 15, 2021. So this funding is part of California Water and Wastewater Arrearage Payment Program. So in accordance with the government executive order, which we actually prohibited water disconnection beginning on March 2020, the city suspended late payment penalties as well to provide relief to customers impacted by the pandemic. And on or about July 1st, 2021, the city reinstated the late penalties. So about this program, so who can apply? So this program is actually for water systems, and the customer cannot apply directly. Next slide, please. So in compliance with this program, the city will implement to disperse the funds to eligible customers within 60 days of funding, which will about April 1st, 2022. So in addition, the report will, we will be in compliance with the state to provide the following information as listed below. Next slide, please. So the city received funding in the total amount of $363,988 and change, which also include 3% of the admin costs, about $10,601.60. So these are accounts in delinquent, which are more than 60 days delinquent. Majority of which is about 75% are delinquent accounts, and then 8% under payment plans, and the rest collection, which is 18%. Next slide, please. So finally, the recommendation of the City Council will accept the award of $363,988, and also in order for us to allocate the funding to the eligible customers. So this is a good news for the Glendorians that help is on the way. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you very much. You did a great job, and you didn't faint, so that is great.
Yeah, I made it.
Yes, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, all right, Mr. Thompson.
Well, I would like to echo what Madam Mayor just said. You did an excellent job, so you get an A. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions on this. Again, the briefing this morning, it was explained to David and I what happened. If the money, if all of the money's not used, it goes back to our state. So I do hope that the residents that need this kind of help can get this help. So I certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alawas.
Hey, Karen, Myla, thank you. Great report. Love your humor. It was wonderful for our community, the folks that, like as Mendel said, that need the help. Let's get the money and get the process moving along. So thank you very, very much.
Will do. Thank you.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yeah, thank you, Marla. Great job. And you know, it's a good cause. I hope that somewhere in our processing, we're figuring out if we have any regular pins in our map on folks that take advantage of the system a little bit. But I think with your crediting and accounting of it, it will be managed correctly. So thank you, and I support this.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Oh, I'll ditto my colleagues. Mila, great job making the presentation. I got to tell you, I actually looked up the word arrearage to see if that was a real word, because it sure doesn't look like one. And Karen, I'm glad I didn't have to pronounce it when you first introduced it, but I did look it up to make sure that, that it was a word and how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But I do have one question. Does this, the funds that we're receiving, does this accommodate everybody as far as you know that is in need at this point?
No, only the ones that were delinquent between March 4th, 2020 until June 15, 2021. Only the eligible customers who will be receiving this help them.
Okay, so there still will be some that may have some hardships that we may have to address at another time.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Great job.
Thank you.
So this is helping those who have been affected or impacted by the COVID pandemic, and the window of assistance is within that window of the pandemic, correct?
Correct.
Yes, thank you. So very good. So anyone wishing to make this motion for this COVID relief fund?
I move.
Thank you.
Thank you. I heard a motion by Councilmember Friedendahl, second by Councilmember Alawas. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And this passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And thanks again, Mila.
Thank you.
This takes us to member staff closing comments. Any council members have any closing comments?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to just voice one thought, and I don't know if we could even do this or even if it would be worth our time. But Adam, as we all know, the price of gas is going sky high. And at some point, people are going to have to make some serious choices. And some are already starting to make those choices. And I don't know what kind of voice the city has in terms of expressing our concern and offering any guidance to the state. I have heard that the state is thinking about reducing the gas tax. I don't know if that would hurt us or it just comes out of the coffers that the state now has. I've heard the state has an excess of 40 billion, as high as maybe 60 billion. But I think at some point we all need to voice our concern and offer any options, opinions, or resources to let our governing authorities know that the person that's on the street is suffering. And I certainly would not want to, as Michael earlier said, put more on your plate. But I also think that we as a city and others like us need to voice our concern to our elected officials, being federal or state. So I'm offering that opinion up. Once again, I don't know what one little city can say that would move the needle, but I think something needs to be said. And I was so proud of what we did during the recent couple of years to encourage elected officials to think about actions that they took. And I do think that did help. So any ideas that you might have or anything that we might be able to do at least to offer our voice of concern.
Sure, I'll ask Moises to jump on just to correct to make sure I'm accurate here. But currently at the state of California level, just for a little bit of background, and then if Kyle or Maria is still on to talk about the total revenue we receive annually from gas tax to give the council some perspective is previously Newsom has indicated there will be a gas tax holiday on the proposed increase in tax that was supposed to go on the price per gallon of gasoline. At the state right now, there's currently a dispute between if the gas tax should be eliminated in its entirety. Some groups wish forever and other groups wish for a potential period of time. The city does not have any implicit direction in our legislative action specifically on gas tax, but do request funds for infrastructure, and largely gas tax comes to the city and helps us pay for roads, including several of the funded projects in our CIP in the out years. So if the city council wanted to say the state should use some of its budget surplus to backfill those sales, that tax revenue to cities, I don't know from a state level what the total annual revenue on gas tax is, but for all intents and purposes, it does look like the price of gas nationwide will go up more, not less. There was a interesting poll recently that actually stated people were generally supportive of paying higher prices for gas to loosen its dependency on Russian oil and natural gas. So I would need a little more direction, Councilman, if we were to move in that direction in order to keep the city's infrastructure and street projects moving forward. I may say that maybe the budget, the state uses some of its reserves to offset some of those lost revenues to local agencies and look at a significant reduction. I think as we move forward, as you indicated, there's going to be a lot of pain for a lot of people who are filling up their cars over $100, for one tank of gas, and they'll do that several times a week, depending on how far they have to drive.
Well,
if the council wants
yes.
to take an action, this is going to have to be put on a future agenda.
Okay.
Right, yeah, so you would need to say what you would like to be on that agenda.
Well, I guess I would say that I would like for us to express our concern, and I don't know what my colleagues feel, but at the very least, see if the state would use $1 billion or $2 billion of the surplus which they have to help people that are hurting, and make our voice known. So
you're
Mendel, if I could just chime in here, it's important to note that the governor announced today that they are talking about a gas tax holiday on the upcoming increase that's going to be hitting us, but that tax only amounts to 2 to 3 cents per gallon. So
Yeah.
when we're looking at $6 a gallon, it's not a whole lot of relief, but he has announced that he would like to use a lot of the surplus for tax rebates for California residents in order to help offset the cost of the rising cost of fuel. So it is being addressed and is being discussed, but maybe we could have an offline discussion about what we would actually like to ask for.
Well, that would be great, and I'm open to anything. I just am very concerned that people are really going to hurt. This is the highest that in my 68 years that I've ever paid for gas, and it's frightening. So that's all.
okay. Thank you. Any other council comments or reports? Okay, Mr. Raymond, Mr. Winder.
Nothing for me, Madam Mayor.
Any other staff have any comments before we close? Okay, seeing none, we will stand adjourned at 8:58 p.m.